Hello folks, welcome to OTD, also known as On The Deck, where you can get all the sports you need in 10 minutes. My name is Adam Orduna, this is my mom Gina.
He is the journalist.
She's the enthusiast.
You know what, I am a little bit less than enthusiastic about your topic today.
Yes.
I really have to say this. I'm enthusiastic about sports, but this kind of breaks my heart what we got to talk about today.
This is a tough one to talk about for sure, and we are talking about the major leagues as far as baseball goes. Is Major League Baseball the most racist sport? And I would have to say that it's definitely up there.
I agree.
This is one of those situations where you have to look at it as an entire thing,
right,
at its entirety, because it's not just one incident that got blown up. This is a thing that's been happening since the very beginning of the sport.
Absolutely.
And you would think in this day and age that we wouldn't have to really be talking about something like this, but in the realities of it all, this is something we have to continue to talk about.
And I hearken back to, well, to answer your question, to me, I hate putting the most on anything, and I really hate labeling anything racist, because you really have to imply the heart of something.
Right.
But on the outside, it definitely looks that way.
Sure.
The incidences that have been going on in Major League Baseball, if you go back historically for me, and listen, all the sports were segregated. Football,
yes,
basketball, there was a time people couldn't imagine black people playing basketball. But with Major League Baseball, they have found a way to, but first exploit black talent and now get around black talent.
Right.
So I think it's an important topic to talk about, and like you said, there's lots of layers to it.
Exactly.
So let's
well,
get
even
into
from
it.
the very beginning with Jackie Robinson, when he first broke the color barrier back in the 40s, it has
April
been a
15th,
thing.
1947,
Exactly.
to be exact.
And so now we're talking about black players in America still. Just to that point with Jackie Robinson and all of the Negro leagues, black players have been a huge impact and influence on baseball in this country specifically since the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big topics with one of my great uncles, we had this conversation, and he was talking about how upset he was. This was about 15 years ago, how
Mm-hmm.
upset he was on how, because there was a big deal about how minimal the number is of African Americans that are playing in baseball right now. And it's a huge sport within our communities.
Yep.
And he was upset about how many non-African Americans are playing. And so what is going on is you get all these teams in the major leagues. They go down to the Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico or Venezuela or some of these
Latin
island
countries,
South American countries, and they go and cherry pick these kids from ages 13, 14, 15 years old and give them these contracts because they know they can afford them. Mm-hmm. And they groom them up, and then they're on a major league roster by the time they're 19 or 20 years old.
Right.
Instead of looking in the backyard where we have African American players who are just as talented, if not more talented,
who could easily be groomed at age 12 and 13.
Right, exactly.
Put into a farm system
Correct.
and brought up and do that. Yeah, I get it.
And so, there's a lot of frustration from a lot of the old heads and just people around the country that feel the exact same way. It's like, hey, we helped build baseball. We helped elevate it to where it is right now. And so we saw this a couple years ago with the Little League World Series, where one of the Chicago teams was just going on an amazing run. And it was I think it might have coincided with the Monet Davis.
Yeah, it was Monet Davis year. Yep, it was.
She was doing all the amazing things that she did as being a pitcher, but the Chicago team basically got all of their wins eradicated because the way they were winning and how they were winning. Well, one of the team's coaches, the opposing team's coaches, basically said some of their players on the Chicago team roster were illegally on that team because of the boundaries of where they live.
And let's be clear, by illegally, you're talking about kids from impoverished neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods, and kids who were like right across the street. They drew up boundaries, and there's very strict rules. And so they got together a group of young black kids.
Yes.
They were winning and beating the brakes off these teams. And one of the teams, the coach got, they beat them like 17 to nothing. It was a bad game. He goes in and pulls up the boundary and makes people produce proof of where the kids live.
Right.
And to me, that is outside of the spirit of of baseball. You're trying to give opportunity for kids to play. And for a lot of cases, this one was different. Some of the kids were a little more middle class and some of them were poor. But at the end of the day, Major League Baseball will go to the most poor countries and rescue kids who have talent. But we're going to go punish kids right here in our backyard in Little League. But Major League Baseball is a sponsor of the League World Series. Now, we live with a lot of baseball snobs that will tell you that's not even the best baseball for youth. I get that.
Yeah, fair enough.
But the point is, it is hard as an African American to see that this sport has not only passed us over, they're willing to go find poor kids from somewhere else.
Exactly.
Well, you know, speaking of that, you know, Chicago and all of that nonsense, now you've got the Cleveland Indians.
Yes.
And that logo, the idea that you're calling yourself an Indian doesn't bother me as much as that Sambo logo. And I think he has a name, and I don't even know because I didn't bother to learn it. But here's what I'm going to say about it. I know Cleveland is finally talking with the MLB about, finally, in 2017, about changing the logo. And I have heard the fans talking about, oh, it's just a caricature. Oh, it doesn't matter. The fact that it is a caricature is what does matter.
Yes.
Because I'm going to ask everybody to just close your eyes for a minute and imagine that instead of a red-faced Indian with big white teeth and big white eyes and a feather, that's a black face with big white teeth and a wide brimmed nose and the bucked out eyes and a bone in his head, and it was Sambo. Or it doesn't even have to be a bone, just put a little cap on his head. He cheesing like that, because that's what the Sambo character was. It was the stepping and fetching and Sambo thing. It's the exact thing. That his name is Chief something, Chief whatever.
Yeah.
That is a Sambo caricature that if it were an African American or a Latino or an Asian, and just substitute any color, yellow skin, brown skin, black skin, we wouldn't stand for it. We'd all be outraged and disgusted. But because it's a Native American, oh, it's okay, no problem. It's just a caricature. It is absolutely offensive and disgusting. And the Cleveland Indians show up, white men, with red face and stripes on the thing. And I mean, it's so degrading.
Yes.
And if you substitute anybody, if you had a bunch of people coming in there with yellow face doing "I'm the tinky tinky tink," everyone would understand how disgusting it is.
They would be out. Everyone would be outraged.
Everyone would be outraged
doing that.
But for some reason, people want to defend this Sambo logo of a Native American.
And the fact that it's going on in the major leagues,
and that it's taken this long for Major League Baseball to finally decide they might do something is ridiculous.
Right. Well, we continuing on with this very hard topic to talk about of racism within professional sports, especially at this time of our lives and where we are right now in this country. We're going to talk about the Baltimore Orioles and the Boston Red Sox.
So disgusting.
Adam Jones is an amazing outfielder. He's an African American who has been a great baseball player for a number of years. And this isn't the first time this has happened, but the Orioles were playing in Boston, playing the Red Sox, and he's out there in the outfield. And I don't know how many people have been out to MLB games or just to any baseball game. If you have the opportunity to be in the stands where the outfield is, you can really say anything to anybody. And it's not just the outfield, but you can really say anything to anyone at any point in time. And they can't do anything because the chance that they turn around and say something to you and the ball gets popped up, now they're distracted. But the point is, the baseball has been kind of an open door to just
heckling,
being able to say
hey,
anything.
batter,
Hey,
pitcher can't pitch.
Yeah, exactly.
The umps take it mercilessly.
Oh my gosh! I mean, it's some of the worst language you might ever
hear.
And so it's one of those situations. Adam Jones is out there, and he's in Boston. And now you would think that this wouldn't even be an issue in Boston because of how this country was built and how there's so much history up there in the Northeast area.
By the way, one of the first people killed in the American Revolution was a free black man in the city of Boston.
Trying to fight for his rights.
It should be the seat of freedom and free thinking.
Everyone should be able to walk in that city with no issues of racism at all. Adam Jones is getting called the N-word on multiple occasions as he's out there trying to perform and just do what he does and play baseball. And this isn't the first player that's complained about that. David Price, who was one time a pitcher for the Red Sox, also said he had to go through that as well as he was a Boston Red Sox.
It got bad enough that someone actually threw a bag of peanuts at him. And I don't know if they hit him or not, but security was able to identify that individual. This is a major issue. There should be a zero tolerance policy.
They were throwing bananas at him at one point in time. There had been a lot of Mookie Betts has talked about this. There are a lot of bad things that not just in Boston, but in other stadiums as well.
And it's allowed allowed to go on. MLB does not protect its African American players.
And there needs to be something done for these fans that are at these games spewing out these racial slurs towards these African Americans and to anybody else of color. This is unacceptable, especially in 2017.
Go back and watch the movie 42 when Jackie Robinson is playing the Phillies, and that manager is calling him
out of the Phillies. It is very uncomfortable.
And you see how Jackie responds to it. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, from 1947 to 2017, it hasn't changed. When you hear white people screaming those words at you, throwing peanuts and bananas at you, that feeling when Jackie Robinson goes in the hallway and he's breaking that bat, it's how we feel, especially when you can't yell back. Major League Baseball needs to have a zero tolerance policy. Not only should those people be thrown out, they should not be allowed back in. Your season is done. You want to yell, you stink, you're terrible, fine. Those are generalizations, but the racist tone that it's in Major League Baseball has got to stop.
Correct.
Shame on you, Boston. You are the seed of freedom in this country. You should not be okay with it.
The last city to, exactly, especially with the whole Boston Strong stuff. That should never be allowed at any point in time, especially when you have pro teams that have the Boston Celtics. How many white guys do they really have on that black team? What, one or two?
Well, and you know what? You've got Tom Brady to save you.
Oh my goodness.
Well, make America great again. Let's keep calling everybody the N-word. Come on now.
Well, the MLB's got a lot of work to do.
They got a lot of work to do.
We will see what happens in response to all of this stuff going on. Because
we'll still talk about it. And I'm not going to let go of the Cleveland Indians thing either. That's not, we're not done with that.
Well, folks, we want to say please continue to give us comments on Facebook and on YouTube. This is an ongoing subject, and we're going to stay very vigilant about this subject.
Yes, we will.
We want to say we do appreciate your time, and
thanks for joining us.
We'll see you again, guys.